Welcome, everyone, to an NABC offseason chat. I'm Andy Katz, pleased to be joined by Josh Schertz from St. Louis. The bill looking over your shoulder looks pretty good there. What's amazing is that in this new era, there's no such thing as rebuilding anymore because you can get a whole roster like that and you can be right back in the mix. You had an unbelievable year in the Valley, you win the Valley, a deep run in the NIT, and in previous past lives for coaches, you go take a job like what you just did, and now you got to go. Yes, you got to go get a roster, but freshman, maybe a transfer, JC, whatever, not expected to do anything. In this case, you can refill it even with some of your own guys really quickly. What is that like to know that you can go from one job to the next and be right back in the mix in a new league?
Yeah, it's certainly changed. I think the last piece that changed was when they went and made now you could have unlimited transfers, right? There was already the portal and you could transfer once. And then, we got a lot of guys, Indiana State, that, for a while, that I guess it was maybe a couple years where, you could transfer once, second transfer, you sat out for the most part. And it became where the most valuable commodity was a multi-year transfer, somebody who transferred in your program who had 2 or 3 years left. And we had a few of those guys coming to Indiana State. And when that rule went away in December, now it's a completely different deal because it's almost like I wouldn't even say the NBA because there's multi-year contracts there, more like Europe, where you can kind of on a year-to-year basis rebuild your roster and the fact that guys can follow you and there's no limitations, restrictions on that will likely make coaches more likely to move because some of those things that held you back before, taking on a massive rebuild and saying, man, it's going to take me years to get out from under this, or I don't want to leave these players behind, that can't transfer with me. Those things are out of the equation right now. And, it's different. When I first took over Indiana State, I didn't understand the portal worked. I came from D2. I had this utopian existence. We had everybody for 5 years. They redshirted. And having gone through that one time at Indiana State, really learned a lot. And I think, we did much better my last 2 years there with how to navigate the portal for us. So fortunate that I had that experience coming in here and allowed us to kind of hit the ground running. But like as you made the point, I don't know in years past that it would have been the same decision because the circumstances are so different now than they were even, 5-6 months ago.
The other thing too is there was no question that your roster at Indiana State could compete with anyone in the country. And so from going to the Valley to the A10, maybe years ago there might have been a difference. There really is no difference. And so players going from Indiana State to St. Louis Valley A10, there's nothing here. I mean, they easily could be right at the top of that league and play at a high level and be all league players. How much has that made the transition even easier to take some of your guys with you to another job, another conference, because they can play at that level without question?
Yeah, I think probably one of my big regrets when I took Indiana State was not bringing more guys from Lincoln Memorial. I actually had this discussion with Ben McCullum, who's taken over Drake now, coming from Northwest Missouri State, and I think they took 4 or 5 of their guys, and kind of in hindsight, wish I had done that because there's the basketball piece in terms of, like you said, the 2 guys we were able to bring from Indiana State, we're all league guys in the Valley. Robbie's runner-up player of the year, Isaiah, second team all league, and was trending towards first team before he got hurt. Those guys should be able to fit in seamlessly, but there's also the cultural piece and the corporate knowledge piece. And for particularly a guy like Robbie, who's been our system 2 years, like he's able to bring the vision of our program to the court every single day, not just how we want to play, but how we want to operate, the standards, the habits, the way we go about business, and Isaiah as well. And those guys have acted very similar to the way Bledson and Cam Henry did when we made the move from LMU to Indiana State as de facto assistant coaches, as players, and players always are more receptive to coaching from their peers than they are from the actual coaches.
Look, you were able to build that program, compete for a title, win a title. the A10 right now, I think it's really fluid. You know, if you've got a good roster, you can compete at the top of this league. St. Louis has traditionally really supported the program. You know, there's no question that within the community, within the city, it's got a good following. There's money. You can get it going there quickly. What do you anticipate this next season will look like for you, this program, the community, and in the A10?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously got to get a feel for the league. I'm going to go through it for the first time, but as you said, there's some programs that have really been solid. When you look at this league, everybody talks about, Dayton, of course, they start there, and VCU, which have these had historical success last year. It was Richmond and Loyola who shared the championship. I agree with you in the sense that St. Louis, we have all the resources and amenities needed to compete at the highest level, not just in this league, but nationally. This Champion Center that was finished in October is a $20 million plus facility. The resources, infrastructure, collective, et cetera, are all at a level that should allow us to compete on a national stage. So there's no excuses in terms of, why we can't do it. Now you got to go out. This league is really challenging, but I thought going in, the Missouri Valley, probably people don't have the same perception as they do of the A10. And I'm not saying it's exactly apples to apples, but the differentiation is not that significant. I think when you look at, I think the Valley was a 9th ranked league in the country in the net and 10th in KenPom, and the A10 was 8th. So there's not this chasm that you can't bridge. But we do know that the depth of this league is really going to challenge you. There's a lot of great teams, great coaches. Being at the A10 meetings in Florida, I was reminded of how good, top to bottom this league is, and that's going to be the challenge every single night. But certainly, you don't want to put any. There should be no limitations, no ceiling on this job in terms of what we can accomplish. The bandwidth for this team is enormous because we have so many new pieces. We have 2 guys that I've coached. We got 3 guys back here, but I haven't coached them in Gibson, Jimerson, Larry Hughes, Kellen Thames. But this bandwidth's enormous. But we don't want to put any cap or ceiling on what we can accomplish. We hope we put together a roster as a talent and character to compete for a championship at the top end of this Atlantic 10.
Last 2 things for you. First off, the fact that you're not alone here, that so many guys, whether they're returning as their head coach or the new school, everyone's putting their roster together later than ever before, which means July on campus, I feel, has become even more important of getting your team together, June, July. And really, I think will probably have an effect negatively on your traditional high school recruiting. What do you think this will mean going forward, certainly this summer and beyond, for college coaches about wanting to be with their team rather than bouncing all over the place recruiting in July?
It's a great point. Yeah, I do think the summers become vital because you're really, in a lot of cases, we are, starting from scratch. I have 2 guys that I've coached and 11 guys that are brand new to me on scholarship. And so getting these guys here, getting them acclimated, me spending time with them because, I'm a big proponent that relationship piece is huge. It takes time. And, we don't have time. Like we have to work to outpace our collective inexperience, and so I do think you're gonna see an effect. I do believe, and I don't know when it'll happen, but I think you'll look at where they'll allow all 5 assistants on the road, on guys that can be on the court to recruit instead of just 3. I think you'll see an expansion there as more head coaches decide to stay in. I think you'll still only be able to have 4 at a time on the road, but I think more head coaches staying in will drive the fact that you'll see more assistants on the road, and the fact that this has become such a kind of a 1-year window. And how are you going to approach recruiting? Are you going to recruit high school guys? You're going to try to, I think we need to here. How is that a priority for you? Are a lot of guys say, hey, we're going to be done with that and we're just going to utilize the portal, get guys that are experienced, get guys that are proven, and we're not going to really mess with the high school guys? What's your approach is going to drive a lot of that. But certainly you've seen with the COVID year that's gone on here, I think the last 5 years, and now this ruling where they're going to give an extra year of eligibility to those that from 1920 on that had to sit. It's really driven the age up in terms of high school recruiting. So in terms of college players, so that has also affected high school recruiting.
Last thing for you, you were at the D2 level. You mentioned Ben McCollum has had great success. Final Four, 3 of the 4 coaches, were originally high school coaches. Used to be, oh, I got to win the news conference and all that. What do you think ADs and search firms will now take with the success of high school D2, maybe some D3 NAI coaches as they climb these ladders? What could that mean for future hires at the D1 level?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. When you look at a lot of these coaches, I think there's such there was a misconception, I would say, that there was a monopoly on great coaches and they were all at the Division I level. And there's so many great coaches across the spectrum, across levels, from D2 to D3, NAI, high school, prep school coaches, AAU coaches. I think there's going to be, you had a lot of ADs that were really always trying to stay inside of, what was safe, what was known. And it doesn't mean that you can't hire a first-time head coach and they would hit it out of the park, because all of us, Danny Hurley, whoever, was a first-time head coach. Somebody took a chance on them at some point. But that when you have successful head coaching experience, that can't be undervalued. And if you're at a level where you've shown the ability to coach inside the game, calling timeouts, having those game reps, I always think that, in anything, you start off and you're on your instincts and you rely on your instincts. Your instincts are good. Instincts allow you to gain really experience. If you take the experiences and you really process them correctly, learn from them, that's how you gain wisdom. And when these coaches that have coached 300, 400, 500 games at game reps as head coach and all the practices, that's hard to invalidate. And so I think you're going to see more Division I ADs stepping outside the proverbial, box and making these hires. And I think it's going to be great for college basketball, because there's a lot of great coaches that deserve an opportunity at the highest level, and excited to see it happen. And I'm certainly thrilled to watch, Benny's a great friend, in the Missouri Valley, and I'll be rooting for him every game except for the 2 he plays against Indiana State.
Josh, appreciate your time and look forward to see what happens with SLU in the coming year.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Andy.